Previously on Obsidius Nyxofcuckoo, Lila, standing at the threshold of an ancient and vast library filled with shifting volumes that seemed to be plotting her undoing from within their bindings' depths, and felt a presence behind her since she entered this realm long ago. Now in front of her was Kim Murayra, a figure whose very existence defied explanation or comprehension, and suddenly the whispers echoed through air so thick it could almost crush Lila's heart against its ribcage. Lila's eyes met those fixed, calculating ones, and all traces she might have felt earlier vanished. The room spun around her bookshelves, rearranging themselves in ways they had never been before. Or did that happen? She wasn't sure anymore. The very fabric of reality seemed to be eroding where Kim Murayra stood, as if summoned by some ancient, malevolent spell cast through whispers and shadows. A figure emerged from within her own mind's labyrinth. This time it was different. It loomed larger than she could see clearly, yet indistinct features shifted ever so subtly, as though the face itself were in constant motion, like water under an observer's fingers. The atmosphere thickened with fear. Lila felt herself pulled into a web of reality that stretched further and deeper through her mind. This time it wasn't just shadows or whispers, but something tangible, something beyond anything she had ever encountered before. Or did this too become part of the shifting fabric? Her grip on what was real slipped away, replaced by an almost desperate longing to understand. As Lila's gaze fixed upon that shape, indistinctly and yet unmistakably familiar, a face born out of her own confusion or another's forgotten memory, it seemed as though all the secrets Obsidius had been searching for were converging here in this moment. The blue box, Kim Murayra, with his inscrutable bestiality. These threads now woven together formed a pattern that suggested something far more sinister than mere curiosity. Lila's fingers twitched involuntarily, as if her very soul was trying to grasp hold of the truth hiding behind those shifting forms. She had felt it before, a sense of belonging, an ancestral connection she couldn't explain away by any rational means known in this world or beyond it, made its presence palpable here within these dark confines. Suddenly, without warning, and utterly unnerving, Lila's heart pounding with a mixture of dread mixed uncomfortably along the edges, the F-Shapa turned towards her. Its eyes met hers, not as empty sockets, but like portals to abyssal realms that seemed on verge of breaking through this very world itself. In an almost silent exhalation, she realized one more thing. Kim Murayra's connection wasn't just a fragmentary part of Obsidius consciousness, it was also the key. The blue box, which had been her gateway to understanding, and now its contents began revealing themselves with strange precision. Was it trying to tell something crucial? Lila stepped forward uncertainly. In this moment she felt an unspoken agreement between them, a silent promise that together they would unearth what lay hidden beneath Obsidius' feverish quest. Yet, as her footsteps crossed the threshold of uncertainty and shadow into known fear, the chapter next beckoned with a new sense of urgency. What Kim did Murayra truly seek? And why now was he so visibly present in this moment, where all threads seemed to converge around Lila's mind, and Obsidius' own quest for understanding began unraveling under their eyes, leading them closer still into the abyss itself. The blue box whispered secrets of a kind she hadn't dared hear yet. Were these whispers finally setting out plans or revealing dangers? Lifting her gaze from Kim Murayra's indistinct face to Obsidius' alert state, where connection was evident if not explicitly stated, their eyes met, and the moment stretched. There, in that convergence of minds, a whispering truth seemed about ready for its unveiling, and Lila wondered whether this path they chose would lead them closer, or perhaps push her further into a realm she might never escape. The next chapter beckoned with an air thick as molasses. What secrets did Kim Murayra truly seek? And what truths lay waiting beyond these shifting shadows and whispers of the abyss itself? Could Lila, Obsidius Nyxofcuckoo, and their connection to this enigmatic face behind her, their understanding, reach deep enough for both them? Or was it already too late in that moment, where reality seemed no longer solid ground? The next chapter held a promise beyond shadows and whispers of the abyss. They had yet another question at hand. Would they find answers before things went terribly wrong? Or could this very convergence push their journey deeper into danger? And as she stepped forward with Obsidius beside her, a path ahead uncertain, but driven by an almost desperate yearning to understand, the next chapter loomed like a dark and twisted door into whose secrets no one would ever know. The last key event was, Elena felt a presence behind herself and saw Kim Murayra standing in the doorway with his eyes fixed intently on something outside their sight, possibly sensing more of her reality, beyond what they could perceive. "Do you know who I am?" Lila whispered again. Her words were like tiny stones dropped into an ocean that seemed to have swallowed all sound and light moments ago. Kim's look was distant yet intense. It felt as if he had seen through the cracks in time itself, not just her reality, but many other dimensions. "Lila, I know you," came a voice from somewhere beyond their current location despite being deeply ensconced within Blackwood Manor's labyrinthine halls of memory. Alina's fingers clenched into fists on top of table laden with ageless maps and logbooks. She was drawn to the door, yet compelled by curiosity as well. "It feels familiar here, like I've been inside you," Kim said in a tone that made her both dread him deeply while at other times felt oddly comforting. The feeling wasn't just his presence, but something deeper, something like he'd known them all along and understood every nuance, ever so slightly more than she did. "It's because it is your reality, within my labyrinth," Elena explained softly as Lila's grip on the table tightened with an underlying sense of dread mixed in her eyes. "But what do you want from me now?" The two were caught between a rock and hard place, trapped but somehow also at crossroads they couldn't see, neither direction leading away from their shared nightmare. Kim didn't respond for several moments before finally speaking through gritted teeth. "I've been waiting to understand why the blue box is your gateway." The words carried an urgency that made Elena's blood chill. She leaned in closer towards Lila, who now seemed almost afraid of him, her eyes never leaving Kim Murayer's ever-shifting look. "What about you?" she asked softly through teeth gritted together hard enough to make a visible impression upon them, each word echoing with the weight that came from decades under his control and manipulation. It was clear he still saw something in Lila different, perhaps even more of who Kim Murayer could be or have become. Kim's expression shifted then into one she had never seen before. Not anger nor dread, but an unsettling mix between them both. A sense that whatever reality lay beyond the blue box now entangled with their own. He paused momentarily to glance at Lila again, who was starting to visibly wilt under his scrutinizing look. "It is complicated," he finally conceded after taking in another moment of noiseless scrutiny, before turning away from her towards Elena once more as if dismissing them both only temporarily, almost like the blue box itself never truly a doorway, but instead an anchor leading into uncharted territory, where truth and illusion intertwined. "I came to know my own history through you. The blue box is not just your gateway." Elena didn't need Kim's words translated, for she understood then all too well what he was conveying. The blue box had been more than merely a portal. It served as both his mirror reflecting everything about him back at himself and perhaps something even deeper. Her mind raced through potential dangers while Lila looked from one to another, noiseless in awe or confusion. The moments stretched out between them, each woman silently wrestling with new realities they hadn't fully comprehended, but were suddenly drawn towards, by a force far stronger than any single entity could ever wield alone. The